also want the four of us, to talk about what in sports on or off the field that we would like to see changed after the pandemic. And I will start. One thing I would like to see changed is I would like, especially in the wake of the NFL seeming to get religion on things, to see more Black head coaches and general managers in the NFL within 5 years. I would love to see 10 of each. Right now we have 3 Black head coaches and 1 Black general manager, and the Black general manager is Harvard's own Andrew Berry, class of '09, who was a 3-time All-Ivy back, and he just was named the general manager of the Cleveland Browns. I talked with him a couple of weeks ago for a story for Harvard Magazine. He's an amazing guy. He's got a kind of a crazy team, the Cleveland Browns, but one loaded with potential. But he's going to try to make some changes. But in any event, let's hope he is the first of many. Tom, do you have some thoughts of what you would like to see changed?
Yes. One thing I'd like to see, if you look at all major league franchises, the appreciation and the value of them over the last 10, 20 years as media has come to dominate. And the reason why the rights fees are so high, it's one of the few broadcast things that people don't DVR, stuff to DVR. You want to see it live. That's very valuable to broadcasters. So the major league teams, the appreciation and the value has been extraordinary, measured now per team in the billions. And yet the teams still go to cities and put a gun to the city's head and say, if you don't build us a new stadium, we're going to leave. And they always talk about the ancillary economic benefits, but there's been study after study after study that says it doesn't incrementally add value to the city that retains the major league team. And yet the cities all, for a matter of pride or for the mayor to keep his job or her job, puts up money to finance these stadiums. And so what I'd like to see change is if a city is going to put up taxpayers' money to support a stadium, that whatever the team's worth at that moment to whatever it's worth when it's ultimately sold by the owner, a chunk of that appreciation reverts back to the city so that not all of it goes into the owner's pocket when the quality of the facility has been financed by the taxpayers. There are some, but very few stadiums that are all privately financed. While I'm in Maine now, my home's in San Francisco, that's one that was privately financed, but same deal. If there's a stadium, when the team is bought, subsequently sold, whatever it is down the road, still a percentage, albeit a smaller percentage of the capital gain for the owner would revert back to the city. I think that would do a lot for the cities and make the owners have more of a mindset that they are stewards of the game and not purely doing it to make money.
Rick?
Yeah, along those lines that Tom talks about, and the fact that we all know that to go to a Major League Baseball game, either in Fenway Park or at Yankee Stadium or a city field, these days, if you're a family, you need to get a second mortgage in order to go and get a ticket and take your family with you. It's unbelievably expensive. And, the fact is, we know that the corporations are the ones who are basically funding the attendance of games. And that sort of translates down into before about travel teams and club teams, which are all over the country. These travel and club teams are basically financed by the parents of the kids who play in these teams. And it's evolved in the last 5 or 10 years into what we call a pay-for-play kind of environment in which, only the kids who come from affluent families who can afford to pay for be in the travel team, to travel to various venues, to pay the coaches' salaries and so on and so forth. It's getting to become a real question of haves versus have-nots. So I'd like to see sort of piggyback on Tom's idea about where the pro teams basically are able to funnel some money back into youth organizations so that the kids who cannot afford to play these travel programs, they now have the wherewithal to do so. Because otherwise, these kids get to an age of 12, 13, they say, well, I can't afford to be in this travel program, and they basically walk away from the sport. And this is just incredibly unfair, and it's easily corrected if these travel organizations get some money to come in from either pro level or themselves, that it's financed in that such a matter. Now, again, you need somebody to watch over all this, because as I mentioned earlier, the travel programs, the club teams are not in any way, there is no watchdog. Nobody watches over this stuff. So you got to make sure that's taken care of in a way that makes a lot of sense. But I think if we don't do this, you're going to see amateur youth sports just become the domain of wealthy kids, wealthy white kids, to tell you the truth.
Yeah. Kathy?
Well, I second what Tom and Rick say, definitely. And I will say, with regard to the pandemic and trimming our budgets, it's going to happen, because we will have a financial crisis for sure. And I think that there's excess everywhere. And I think if we look closely at excess, way back when Title IX was fighting its fight, they blamed women and women's sports for hurting men's sports, when that was really not the case. All you have to do is look at where the excess is and trim it. And I think this might be the time we can give that a good hard look and do that. And so we don't have to cut sports or fire people or furlough people or all that we're afraid of right now. And regarding social justice, I am a big proponent of education and awareness, and this movement feels powerful to me, and I'm rejuvenated by it. The Ivy League is having a mandatory MLK game for both men and women's basketball to honor Black Lives Matter, and all the proceeds of those games will go to some charity that will help the cause. There's going to be a mandatory no sports on November 3rd, Election Day, so that we can talk about voting awareness and absentee ballots and get this non-voting population more aware and out and voting, and help to change the world in that regard. And the last thing is, I'm a big proponent of mentoring and role modeling, and I think every college team should associate with inner city teams, whether they're youth teams or whatever team they are, and have an ongoing role modeling program. And that will help with some of what you talk about, Rick, because I see that horribly, that it's the rich getting richer and then these other kids don't get the chance. So those are the changes that I would love to see.